If you're new around here, please hit the subscribe button below and please like the video. It helps the channel to grow. Enjoy watching. Thank you very much. Okay guys, welcome to Irish Footy Vlogs. This is the season review for 2019 of the League of Ireland Premier Division. I'll just give you a quick summary of what way I'm going to do it basically. So I'm going to give a summary of each team's season last season. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up to the top. It's going to be a reasonably long one because I want to give a little bit of depth to each team. So that's what's going on, guys, and please enjoy the video. Cheers. So the first club, guys, to speak about is UCD, and unfortunately for UCD, they finished rock bottom of the league with 10 points. They finished 9 points adrift of Finn Harps, who finished 9th, second bottom in the league. So it was a disappointing season for UCD. 19 points is a very low total for any club. We all know about UCD, though. They're a university college. Some people suggest they're not a club because they've no fans, etc., etc. But the truth is they're an Irish League club, and they produce an awful lot of good players. I think 7 or 8 players in the FAI Cup final between Shamrock Rovers and Dundalk featured for UCD in their career, came from UCD. So that's exceptional. Very tough season for them. Collie O'Neill obviously lost his job. He lost his job in August, a couple of days I think after a bad 10-1 defeat at Bohemians, which was a real low in a low season for them. In came, now I can never pronounce this guy's name, but Maciek Tarnogrodzki is his name, or something like that. Polish man, managed the under-19s, and he's taken over the club, and obviously he'll be in charge I think next season too. As I said, they produced a lot of very good young players, and Liam Scales, he was their captain, under-21 Irish international. Goalkeeper Kearns, another under-21 international. James McClelland is a good player in the wing as well. So these are players they had obviously this season, 2019. I won't be talking much about next season and players coming or going. But, it was a difficult season for them. Where did it go from here? Who knows? But I suppose their high of the season though was a 3-1 win against St Patrick's Athletic in the FAI Cup final, FAI Cup. So that was a good result for them, which was a season of lows for them, to be fair. It's a difficult one for them. Yusuf Madej was their top scorer with 5 goals this season. That shows a problem in itself as well, just 5 goals for him this season. I don't think summer football really suits UCD either. I think mid-season as well, they tend to lose a lot of players. When you're losing players like Neil Farrugia mid-season, the key for them would be probably if they can try and tempt these players at least to stay for the season and make them as competitive as possible for the whole season, and then at the end of the season they leave, if they're going to leave. But they keep producing talent though. That's the thing with UCD. I suppose they're a producer of talent. Disappointing season for them, but I guess at the same time it's expected. 9th place in the Premier Division in 2019 was Finn Harps, and the Donegal men are a very interesting club, managed by Ollie Horgan. Again, he done a fantastic job for them last season. He knows that staying in the Premier Division is a league title essentially for Finn Harps. Everything taken into context, and them staying in the Premier Division is huge for another season. They came through a very difficult playoff against Drogheda United to cement their place in the division. Just about got through. Probably their little bit of experience and in playoffs got them through. And the fact that they played better opposition more regularly all season than Drogheda. 1-0 in the first leg to Drogheda. 2-0 after extra time in the second leg for Finn Harps. They've got leaders in their team. From last season, 2019, Keith Cohen was a real leader and a big player for Finn Harps. Leaving at the end of the season, he's going to be a huge loss for them, unfortunately. Mid-season, they lost Caelan McAleer as well, which was a huge loss for them as well. Would he have made a difference? Could they have nicked 8? It's hard to know. I doubt it, to be honest. I think it was likely Finn Harps are going to finish 9th. Nathan Boyle's the top scorer with 9 goals this season. 5 goals this season. A bit of a pattern in the Premier Division this season. A lot of clubs struggled with goal scorers, never mind the clubs that finished near the foot of the table. Daniel O'Reilly, centre half, he was voted Player of the Year, and he's on his way to Shelburne now as well. So it's going to be a difficult, again, Ollie Horgan is going to have to, dig deep next season again for Finn Harps, but probably in a division that's going to be even more difficult. But I think Finn Harps fans would take ninth almost every year, certainly in the last couple of years, and win their playoff and stay up, because it's imperative, I think, that they keep going and keep playing Premier Division football, And I think Ollie Horgan, he's definitely got that attachment with the club and with the fans, and he's done a great job. So context is everything here, and Finn Harps finishing ninth, very good season for the club. Now, 8th last season were the Rebels from Cork by. Okay, that was a shocking accent, to be fair. But Cork City jersey behind me here. Major shock at Cork City finishing 8th in 2019. Funnily enough, personally, I actually tipped them to struggle. I had them down actually for 5th, because some of the struggles actually, I thought that might occur came to pass, but I'd never tipped them for 8th place, and they were down there for pretty much all season. John Caulfield obviously was the manager. They were 8th when he left the club. I just felt, I think, at the start of the season with Cork City, John Caulfield, there was a few rumblings of discontent there, I felt. Budgets and things like that. Clearly, over the last few seasons they did overspend. That's come to the fore a little bit now with them. But to go from winning an FAI Cup, doing the League and Cup double, and Dundalk's closest challengers in the last number of seasons to 8th is a major collapse. I don't think anybody would have expected that. When you lose players over the last few seasons like Sean Maguire and at the start of the season Kieran Sadler, who moved on to Doncaster, there was always going to be a drop off, in my opinion, and with other clubs maybe coming up a little bit and boosting that. But didn't foresee this. Caulfield left the club, as I said, in May. I think they were definitely 8th at the time. It didn't get any better for them. John Cotter took the job for a couple of months as interim manager before Neil Fenn took over again. In August he came back to the club, having left Longford Town. Difficult job for him, but he's kind of part of the furniture a little bit at Cork City, and he knows the club and knows the potential of the club. And in a sense, with a smaller budget now, he's nothing to lose in many ways. The season never got better for Cork. It literally never got going for Cork, and finishing 8th, as I said, was a major disappointment. Some of the players like Gerard Morrissey, Connor McCormack and Carl Shepherd were just a shadow of themselves. We didn't really see an awful lot in terms of major new signings, and that Graham Cummins left in the window and went on loan to Shamrock Rovers. So just things that can get going for Cork. The crowds dropped off, unfortunately, for Cork City as well. The Cork season's league season was by far the most disappointing of any of the other teams in the Premier Division this season. And you know what, I'm going to leave that in because that says it all about the club this season, to be fair. Into the West now, and we head over to Sligo Rovers, who finished 7th in the league last season. Now, the Bit of Red employed Liam Buckley, which was a very smart move as their new manager. Liam Buckley spent 7 seasons at St Patrick's Athletic, where it got a little bit stale, but I believe Liam is still one of the best managers in the league. As far as the season went for Sligo, I think it was a good foundation season under Liam Buckley. They've a lot to work with. Up front, they've got Ronan Coughlin, who they brought in from Cork, who had a very good season. I think there's more to come from him as well. I think he'd score more goals for them. Romeo Parks is a massive signing. The Jamaican international came from the United States, and one of the few teams actually in the league this season where they have 2 good goal scorers, I think, in their ranks, certainly up top. Lewis Banks was their player of the season, a very good player. They've got John Mahon at the back, a very good young player coming through, and the goalkeeper, Ed Ginnity, in goal. He's only 20, the Scotsman. So they've got a good base there. They've got David Cawley in the middle of the park as well, giving them a bit of experience. So they've a good base there and had a good base all season. But I think they improved a bit as the season went on as well. Liam Buckley does tend to, try and familiarise himself in the first season and, kick on then after that. But I think Sligo fans will be pleased enough with the season they had. They're probably unlucky to finish 7th. They're probably, 6th and 7th. But Parks got injured the last number of games. And I think if he was fit, they probably would have finished at Waterford. Waterford kind of pipped them in the end to that 6th spot ultimately. So I think it's been a good season for Sligo. They got to the FAI Cup semi-final where they were very narrowly beaten by Dundalk. There's a lot to build on. They were very difficult to beat. Particularly at the showgrounds this season, and the fact that a lot of their players have stayed on is a testament as well to Liam Buckley. At the start of the season as well, if you remember, they lost Mikey Drennan, who'd done very well for them last season. So to bring in the likes of Parks, Coughlin, another couple of signings like that could be interesting for them going forward without getting too much into going forward. But I think it was a solid season for Sligo. And onwards and upwards for Sligo Rovers. To be honest, this season proved to be an absolute disaster for everyone involved in Waterford FC, from on the pitch and off the pitch. First we'll talk about on the pitch. They finished 4th the previous season and qualified for Europe. Now, unfortunately, they didn't get a licence. UEFA didn't grant them a licence. And the FAI didn't grant them a licence, despite the fact that Lee Power, the chairman of Waterford FC, actually said that they were given no indication that they wouldn't get a licence into Europe. The FAI had come out and the UEFA had come out to the club and there was no indication given. So very controversial and very disappointing that Waterford didn't see European football last season. The prestige of it for the club would have been huge, along with the finances, and could well have ramifications, as we know, going into next season. On the field, in the league, very disappointing. They finished 6th. 2 places from last season, but they weren't in contention for Europe this season at all. They lost Bastian Heary, who was a very influential figure, and Courtney Doofus, who scored a lot of goals for them last season, was a good player for them. That said, they added Zachary El-Buzzetti, who proved to be a massive stroke from Alan Reynolds, great signing. And Walter Figueroa came in later as well, very good signing as well. So I believe they had the players to do better, but maybe the controversies, etc., and the off-the-field stuff didn't help the club this season. They still have players like Rory Feely and Shane Duggan and players like that involved. And, again, they probably struggled for a striker for most of the season as well. But they're a good club, Waterford, and probably Cork City aside, maybe the most disappointing team this season if you take all things considered. The major European controversy though was a hammer blow for them as well, as I said. But yeah, Waterford FC, good club. Hopefully next season they can improve, but it's looking difficult because, as I said, it looks like they're going part-time. They're losing a lot of players and that kind of thing. But they'll be disappointed enough with their season after having a brilliant season the year before and a good couple of seasons actually as well. Banging on 5th, middle of the table, were St Patrick's Athletic. Again, another club that had a disappointing season based on some of the signings they made actually in the pre-season. Chris Forrester, everybody knows the talent Chris Forrester has, made a return to the club. Mikey Drennan came in from Sligo, and Rhys McCabe also came in for Sligo. There were 3 players that you thought would do very well for past this season, and in all honesty, none of them did well for past this season. They also brought in a new manager. Harry Kenny came in after Liam Buckley was in for 7 years. So maybe there was an element of transition with Pats as well. Kenny, he didn't seem to settle. I don't know if the job was a bit big for him. I'm not sure. I'm only speculating, but he didn't seem to settle himself, and it seemed to be a little bit of dressing room unrest throughout the season for Pats. Um, they struggled badly in front of goal. They just couldn't score. They, at Richmond Park, for example, their home ground, they failed to score twice in one game all season at home, and that tells its own story. Um, you know, they were in the hunt for Europe for a while though. Surprisingly, they were on the coattails of Bowes and Derry. They kind of hung in there, but they were always just hanging in there, and ultimately they didn't deserve to finish third or fourth and qualify for Europe. Stephen O'Donnell, of course, came in with about 7 games to go, his first job. He's a young, fresh, hungry manager. He knows what a winning dressing room is like from his time at Dundalk. He was captain for a while at Dundalk as well. Be interesting to see how he goes. But he came in with the last 7 games anyway, and for the last 7 games, and they were up and down as well, but they appeared to be a little bit improved in those 7 games overall. There were signs that Chris Forrester was showing some form, get back to some form. So going forward, you know what I mean? If you can get him firing, he's a massive player. I still believe he can. But yeah, St. Patrick's Athletic, yeah, I mean, full-time club as well. So in that way, they'd be disappointed. They benefited from Waterford FC not getting into Europe. Pats essentially took their place. Ultimately, were beaten by a Swedish club called Norrköping, I think they are. And, that was it for the Saints. But with a couple of managerial changes now, they'll be hoping to get settled now going into next season. And hopefully from their point of view that they can perform better. Good club, nice little ground. But I don't know if that caused problems for them a little bit as well. There was they planned to basically move Richmond Park to a new ground just across the road from Richmond Park in St. Michael's Estate. They were going to call it Richmond Arena. I think it's going to be 12,000 all-seater stadium. But unfortunately, the council rejected it, and I don't know where they go from here in that regard. I'm not really sure the ins and outs why it was rejected, but Pats had offered that, that housing would be put into Richmond Park, and that site would be used for housing instead, and they were going to kind of build up the area of Inchicore along with Richmond Arena. There was going to be shopping outlets, etc., and things like that. So it was a very good plan. But unfortunately, I think that's dead in the water, and I don't think that's going to go any further, which is a big pity because the plans look good, and I do think it's a pity it's just plainly rejected, and that's the end of it, that kind of way. It would have been great for the area, but that's it in St. Patrick's Athletic. Ultimately disappointing season, and they'll be hoping to move up, I think, next season now. Now on to a club who had a fantastic season in Derry City. They finished fourth in the league and qualified for Europe, which is a fantastic achievement from where they were last season. They finished 8th last season. They made some excellent signings. Sloggett came in from UCD, had an excellent season for them. The two loanees, Parkinson, Parkhouse and Junior were fantastic for them. Junior ended up top scorer in the league with 14 goals. Parkhouse though got 17 or 18 goals this season in all competitions, so a lot of goals in the team. Bringing back Barry McNamee was another big one as well. He never really settled at Cork. He was previously very good at Derry and would have known the manager Declan Devine. Declan Devine coming back to the club was their biggest signing though, in all honesty. He obviously brought these players in as well, but to bring them from 8th to 4th in a season was a fantastic achievement. Devine obviously won a cup with Derry previously, and how he was overseen though for the Manager of the Year award in terms of a nomination even, I personally think he was pretty close to Manager of the Year in my personal opinion. He took them from 8th to 4th. in the space of a season. He wasn't there in previous seasons. Like, you know what I mean? This was his first season returning to the club. Yes, he knew the club, but even so, it was his first season back. To take them from 8th to 4th to get them into Europe. And remember, they lost in the EA Sports Cup final to Dundalk on penalties. You know? Personally, I think if he wins that on penalties, he's manager of the year hands down, and he doesn't even get a nomination. So I think that's, I think he was harshly done by in that way. He probably doesn't really care, but I think he was harshly done by Declan Devine in that way. I think, you know, look, Derry City as well, the Brandywell is a lovely little ground, newly refurbished, and it's a lovely little ground as well. So Derry City have a lot going for them. You know, Declan Devine will have to work his magic again next season. The only downside to bringing in players like Junior and Parkhouse that do very well on loan is that you definitely lose them at the end of the season, and it's replacing them. Suddenly then that becomes a bit of an issue. But it's going to be interesting to see how he does that. Obviously, they did bring in Figueroa for next season from Waterford FC. So, you know, without again diving into too much next season, it's been an excellent season for Derry City. One of the stories of the season, in my view. And yeah, Declan Devine, in my view, definitely was overlooked big time. Should have definitely got a nomination at least for Manager of the Year. On the third, and we have Bohemians. The Dalymount Park Club would have, a lot of people had them tipped for, if not relegation battle. Personally, I thought they do okay. I did have them down for 4th actually this season, because I just felt Keith Long, he's pretty good in the market. He is very good with young players, and Bows have a lot of young players coming through. You know, so I did tip them for 4th. They finished 3rd, great season for them. Got into Europe, first time they're in Europe for 8 years, Bohemians, so that's a big achievement for them. You know, Keith Long is very good at managing young players. He brought a few back from England. James Talbot, very good goalkeeper. He's done very well this season. No one knew how good he was when he came in, but he's performed brilliantly. He obviously brought Daniel Mandreu back from England as well. And like El Bazzetti in many ways at Waterford FC, you know, proves coming back to the League of Ireland can actually give some of these young players a bit of a lift and actually progress their careers, because Mandreu was in the Irish under-21 squad this season, as was El Bazzetti, and done very well actually. So, you know, coming back to the League of Ireland isn't the end by any means. In fact, sometimes it's the opposite, and you see a lot of examples of that. But regarding Bohemians, did they overachieve? In terms of their budget, they probably did, but they do have a lot of young players at the club that are very good. Danny Grant is another one, very good winger. See him go next season. Denny Corcoran, they lost Denny Corcoran through injury, and I suppose when you look at that as well, he was top scorer in the league when he got injured. Who's to say he wouldn't have finished top scorer in the league as well? They lost him earlier on in the season as well, so I suppose to finish 3rd in that regard as well, and losing someone like him was a big loss. You know, I think Keith Long has built a real siege mentality with Bohemians as well, though. Like, there's a kind of a they've always had that working class thing, but it's almost brought into focus more under Keith Long. I don't know what it is. Maybe because it's been part-time and the budget and all that kind of thing that's come into play as well. You know, they did have an excellent season. Despite their defeat to Shamrock Rovers in the FAI Cup semi-final, they kind of had the Indian sign over Shamrock Rovers a little bit over the past couple of seasons as well. And obviously that brought a lot of joy to Bohemians fans. You know, their midfield as well. I thought Conor Levington was very good this season. Buckley has really matured over the last couple of seasons as well. All around the park, obviously Darragh Leahy, left back, another Irish under-21 international. You know, the players of that calibre in their squad this season. So don't be fooled to thinking that Bohemians have an average squad and are overachieving with Keith Long. They are overachieving a little bit because of their part-time status, but Keith Long is very, very clever in terms of spotting talent to bring in players. Another one that was considered for Manager of the Year, and a lot of people would feel unlucky that he didn't get Manager of the Year as well. I still think personally Declan Devine would have been my personal choice, but Long would have been damn close. At the end of the season, Derek Pender also announced his retirement from the game. Unfortunately, the Bohemians veteran will not play football again, but there's talk about him coming into the club regards some kind of coaching capacity, but he'll probably be a loss going forward for Bohemians in the dressing room next season. It was considered at the start of the season that Shamrock Rovers could make a real push for the title. Bringing in players like Jack Byrne, who I thought was an excellent sign at the time, and he obviously proved to be. He ended up getting Player of the Year. Stephen Bradley there a number of years now seemed to be building them up slowly, but he was building them up. Obviously finishing second in the league, 11 points off Dundalk in the end after having a 13-point lead. Did they blow it? I don't think so necessarily. I think it was too early in the season. If it was later on the season they had a lead like that, you would say they blew it a little bit. But and it's very early in the season, it's a long season, a lot can happen, to be fair. I don't think they blew it. Obviously, in the end, they got their trophy. The first time they've won the FAI Cup in, I think it's about 32 years, which is hard to believe because they've won a lot more than the next club, Dundalk. That's their 25th cup now at this stage, Shamrock Rovers. Deserved to win it. They won it on penalties, Dundalk hung in there, but in the end, Shamrock Rovers deserved. They probably should have won the match before it even got to penalties. But yeah, they built up a good squad as well. Not as strong as Dundalk's, but by far the second strongest in the league. You know, when you can have midfielders like Greg Bulger, Dylan Watts, Jack Byrne, Ronan Finn. I'm going to miss a few here as well. Players like that in midfield that you can kind of rotate as well. Gary O'Neill's another one. So throughout the season, that's important that I think especially good volume of quality midfield players that you can save energy and players can get rests and come back in and that kind of thing. The squad definitely helps. But they finished comfortably ahead of Bohemians in third. They finished 15 points out of Bohemians in third. And I think their season was good, very good in the end because of the FAI Cup win. But it was a fine line. If they'd lost that FAI Cup final, I think Roberts fans would be suggesting that was another disappointing season, to be fair. They'd be looking to build on that now without going too much into the future. But yeah, I mean, they failed to beat Dundalk all season. I know they beat them on penalties in the FAI Cup final. Will that give them confidence that they can challenge them next season? Who knows? But Shamrock Rovers is a club that need to be challenged for the title now. They've a great setup there now as well. Obviously with Tallaght Stadium, it's there a while now, so it's kind of seeped in, if you like. It must be there 9 or 10 years now, the new stadium. But they've all the resources now to go on and challenge, really challenge, and I'm looking forward to seeing if they can do that next season. Stephen Bradley has come under a lot of criticism over the last few years, so you have to give him a bit of credit and the club credit for sticking with him and giving them that foundation, because they could have easily just at some stage just said, look, we're not really progressing quickly enough here and let's get someone else in. But Bradley's done well and he stuck to his guns, and I questioned him as well, I have to be honest. I wasn't sure Rovers could really progress with him. They have won the cup now. They do need to kick on a bit more now as well. But I think their season as well, it was based on top scorer Ardree got 11 goals. McAniff was very good on the wing for them as well, scored quite a few goals as well. I think it was 9 or 10. But I think their season was, the foundation was a really solid backline. Alan Manus in goal, arguably the best goalkeeper in the league this season. Grace and Lopez, very solid partnership in that central defence. they switched a few times at left back as well. They obviously had Trevor Clark, and he left the club, and then a Kavanagh there as well. Joey O'Brien, very experienced, obviously Irish international at right back. I think the defence was a key to them this season, and something that they can build on. Trevor Clark aside, they won't be losing any players, I don't think. Lee Grace looks like he might be staying at the club. So I think that's important for them moving forward. But overall, when you look at it, it was kind of a bit helter-skelter for them this season in many ways. But ultimately, winning the FAI Cup, the last game of the season, Shamrock Rovers, in the end, had a very good season. Finally, guys, we're coming to the end of the review, and we're finishing up with the champions, Dundalk FC. Again, a fantastic season for Dundalk. Just fell short of the treble. Failed to land the treble based on the fact that they lost in a penalty shootout to Shamrock Rovers. I suppose you win some, you lose some, because they beat Derry City on penalties in the EA Sports Cup up in the Brandywell as well. So, what can you say? At the start of the season, there were serious question marks over Dundalk, despite the squad they had, because Stephen Kenny had left, obviously, to take the Irish under-21 job initially, before he takes the senior job. But Kenny had obviously laid the foundation there, and had built Dundalk up from also Rans to where they are now, along with the American owners. But still, Vinny Perch being on the backroom team, I think, probably helped. But you have to give them credit, because at the start of the season they struggled, and I mentioned how they were 13 points behind Shamrock Rovers at one stage, and you have to give them credit there, because things could have went wrong in the dressing room. It could have been seen that Vinny Perch maybe can't handle the job, etc, etc. So many questions. So they came back roaring, and you have to give Vinny Perch, he has to get a bit of credit for that. A lot of credit for that, I suppose. He nearly done what Stephen Kenny didn't do, and that's land the treble. Of course, he's inherited a great squad, there's no doubt about that. The signings they brought in, I wouldn't say any of them were key this season, but they probably helped to push the players that were there, the likes of Sean Murray and players like that. They've Georgie Kelly emerging now as well, looks like a real threat to Patrick Hooban, who finished on 14 goals this season, not as many as the season before. I don't think that was ever going to happen, but his influence was there. They've goals all around the team. Michael Duffy, of course, fantastic player. Not only does he score goals, but he scores vital goals, important goals, and nearly saved Dundalk in the FAI Cup final with a fantastic strike as well. Having scored the winner to get them there in the first place with a late goal in the semi-final. Duffy was very close, in my view, to being Player of the Year this season as well. Very good player, but all round they're very good. When you can bring in and out players like Daniel Kelly, you know what I mean, and have them on the bench and sometimes start them, it just says it all about their squad. Chris Shields, a key player for them again this season. They just seem to keep that hunger up for some reason. Don't know how to do it. I think bringing in a few players every year pushes these players on. That back line they have as well, the competition, they've 4 very good choices of centre back. You've got Cleary and Hoare, who are generally the 2 picked all season. But when you've got Gartland and Boyle as well, I mean, you know what I mean? There's some choices there. Sean Gannon, best right back in the league. Gary Rogers, very experienced, a great leader in the dressing room. They've got a good team, first 11, but their squad is just fantastic as well. They'll be looking to add to that again next season, and will definitely be the team to beat again next season too. It's a pity from their point of view they didn't land the treble, because they had the squad to do it. They obviously played every match they could have possibly played in a long season, because they got to 2 cup finals. Would have been disappointed with the European campaign, I suppose, losing out Slovan Bratislava. 5-2 on aggregate. I think some Dundalk fans have said maybe in Europe Vinny Perk could improve a little bit, that maybe he was a bit too defensive, possibly. So yeah, they'll be looking to push on, and who's going to beat them next season? That's going to be the question. Right, essentially, guys, that's the season review finished. I tried to give decent depth as much as I possibly could without having to go too long. and I didn't want to go into next season too much, and I'm aware of a lot of most of the signs that every club has made and players have left the club, but I want to keep that for a season preview really in the new year. So that's about it really. I'm going to be doing the first division season review as well, and that might be coming out next week as well. There's a few other little bits I'm looking at as well, so whilst the season's over, I might do a few vlogs of some Leinster senior games. I'll see. I'm going to do a League of Ireland 11, kind of like, I'm not going to say best 11 of my lifetime, but favourite 11, because I think it's very difficult to pick best 11 of my lifetime. Like, you know what I mean? You're talking since the mid-90s pretty much. And I'm going to, it'll only be players that are basically retired, so players in the league playing in the league now won't count, just to narrow it down a little bit. So there's bits and pieces like that, so there's loads of stuff. So again, if you're new around here, please subscribe and like, because it helps the channel grow as well. And I enjoyed doing the review, and I'll see you again later. Cheers, thank you, bye bye.